Video services provided by Vacaville's very own Choker Films. Video production, editing, and compositing services.
Again, I want to thank everyone for coming. This is kind of a step off a cliff to see what happens, and and I am so pleased that so many people have responded in such a positive way. It's more encouraging than I can ever tell you. I want to thank all of the law enforcement wonderful men who are here tonight. I introduce those people to you. Lieutenant Tom Cordova from Dixon, and Chief John Carli from Vacaville, Sheriff Tom Ferrara, Solano County Sheriff, Chief Avery Brown from the Golden Gate Division, Joseph Allio from Fairfield, Chief Tim Mattos from Suisun, Chief Andrew Bidou from Vallejo, and Lieutenant Frank Hartig from Benicia. So it's a wonderful array of Solano County's law enforcement, and again, I am so pleased that you all have come to join us and share with us and with everyone. So other people that I want to thank, especially who are here, are members of elected officials who have come. We have a long list of representatives from Congressman's office, from our assemblymen. 3 representatives of 3 assembly offices are here. Jim Frazier's, Bill Dodd's, and Susan Benilla's office are here. Skip Thompson is here from the Board of Supervisors. The Mayor of Suisun, Vice Mayor of Vallejo, Len Augustine, the Mayor of Vacaville, City Council members from Fairfield, from Vacaville, Rio Vista, Planning Commission members from Vacaville, there's about 5, and 4 from the Community Service Commission in Vacaville. So there may be others that I haven't listed, but I thank you all for coming. And I hope that you are able to learn from this panel discussion how we can help better meet the needs of law enforcement and actually work together. So I'm pleased that you're all here. We have a lot of community resources that are also here, and I want to introduce those to you. They have a lot of wonderful information at the back of the room, and I'm hoping that all of you will go back there on your way out of the building, talk to these people, pick up brochures, get information, and volunteer. These are all organizations that can use your help, and the job doesn't get done unless you and I step up and do it. So we can do this, and that's what a community is all about. From Solano County Mental Health, we have Ed Sheets with us. He's the clinical supervisor. Kay Kelso is here, I think, on the back. And Jolie Brower is here, and who else? I think that's it. So, from the Solano County Adult Literacy Program, Joanne Wright is here. She's up in front. And Ron Marlette, the Executive Director of Mission Solano. Ron, you want to come up here, so you'll be speaking for a few minutes, so you can have a seat up here too. So, and we have Chaplain Mindy Russell here with us from the Law Enforcement Community Services up in Sacramento. I met her in January, and her organization make a wonderful contribution to the community, and I wanted her to share some of the things that her group does. It's inspiring, and it will be give us here in Solano some more ideas of things that we can do. Big Brothers and Big Sisters are also represented. They have a table back in the back, and Vacaville's Crime Prevention and Community Resources are also there. Gretchen Ash is in the back and has a lot of information there for you. So you should have all 4x6 question cards. They're around. If you didn't get one, you can find someone. We'll collect those a little later on in the program. If you have questions that you'd like to address to any of the officers today, we'll try to get through as many questions as we can. If we don't get to your question, we will forward it to the correct agency, whoever it's directed to. So put that information on there. And now I would really like to say thank you and introduce our moderator, Robbin Miller, who is the editor of Vacaville's Reporter. So thank you, Robbin, and take it away.
Take that away from me.
Oh, yeah, okay, sure.
Thank you, and thank you, Colleen, for inviting me to be a part of this, and for the reporter to be a part of this. We're just going to get right to it. So, first of all, I want to lay out a couple of ground rules. Your answers are going to be timed. We have a timer sitting in the front row, and she's showing you her 15-minute warning sign, 15-second warning sign. When you see that, that doesn't mean you have to end right then, but that's a hint for you to start wrapping it up. For any of the elected officials in the room who've been through our editorial board know I'm a stickler for the time on this. So we're going to start with just some opening statements, an opening presentation, 5 minutes for each speaker. We want you to describe your agency's particular law enforcement role, jurisdiction, etc., relate particular challenges your department is currently facing, may include any sort of issues that have come up recently, Prop 47, prison realignment, whatever. And so we'll just start at this end with Dixon and move our way down.
Hello everyone, my name is Tom Cordova. I'm Lieutenant of the Dixon Police Department, and I'm filling in for Police Chief John Cox tonight. So I'll give a little background, a little foundation of our police department. Most folks here are not from Dixon. So we are a police department of 20, when we're fully staffed, 25 sworn members, 5 non-sworn, 1 part-time. We have a chaplaincy program with 4 chaplains. We have 7 cadets and 4 reserve police officers. Our police department is broken into 2 divisions. We have the patrol division, which is our main focus, and support services division, that includes investigations, records, property and evidence, and code compliance. Dixon's a small community, 18,000 to 19,000 people. We're surrounded by agriculture. Agriculture is a large part of our way of life in Dixon, a big part of our economy. Other parts of our economy include light industry, distribution centers. About 25% of our community commutes either to work. Okay, that'll work. We'll just make it work. So about 25% of our community commutes out of the city and commutes to work either to large metropolitan areas in the Bay Area or Sacramento. We have a very good relationship with our community. It's still a community where people wave at you, come up and talk to you at the store or at the gas station when they see you in uniform. We often get letters of appreciation and support from our community. And over the last, year, we finally got a Facebook page, and it's really taken off and become very popular. At first, it started off a little slow, but I would say on both the police department side and the community side, everyone's very interested in it. I think we have 2,000 hits, and that's a lot for a town of 18,000 people. So we have a great relationship with our community. Some of our problems or issues or challenges that we have right now would be digging ourselves out of this recession. It's starting to happen. Trying to hire new officers, that's a big challenge for us, and Prop 47. So on that note, during the recession, like many other agencies or all agencies, we too had to take pay cuts, and it seemed some of our folks left for larger cities where the pay was a little bit better. So that hit us hard. All the while, crime was increasing. Calls for service were increasing. We were lucky. Our service was not compromised. Our response time to calls is still very, very low. And we still provided great service, and we're very proud of that. So the good news is the economy has turned around. Building is happening in Dixon. Our budgets are getting restored to what they were prior to the recession. And our next challenge comes up, and that's trying to recruit. So we go through the business cycle of we lost some folks, and now we're going through a positive business cycle where we're going to hire and train and that's a good problem to have. But now we're competing with other agencies, and we're all competing for a small pool of qualified applicants. So that's where we are now. It's not a complaint, it's just a challenge, and it's a good one to have. Our last challenge, or the final point I'm going to make, is Prop 47. Last November, Prop 47 was voted on and passed, and it's provided a problem for us. We have drugs, like every community in Dixon. The drug we come across most often is methamphetamine. Not that we don't have heroin or cocaine or other drugs, but methamphetamine seems to be very prevalent in Dixon. And there's a lot of facets to Prop 47, but I'll just make one point, and that is on controlled substances such as methamphetamine or heroin or cocaine or ecstasy. Instead of arresting people on a felony and they go through a trial for a felony, now we, oh, I'm about up. Can I finish? We now, we cite and release, and that's very devastating. Our property crimes are up, and it's devastating to the morale of our officers who are out there trying to do a good job, and they make an arrest the next day or the next week. These folks are back on the street committing crime. So on that, I'm out of time. I'll pass it on to Chief Carli.
Well, welcome. Thank you for being here tonight. It's a great opportunity, actually, to engage the community, because this is really what this is about, is community engagement, and an opportunity to explain ourselves and to answer questions for you. You know, Vacaville is one of those communities more on the north side of the county, but when you think of a city almost 100,000, there's a lot to offer. So a full-service city has a full-service police department, and that is something that as we work together through the recovery part of a downed economy, we've all been there, we've all struggled, and so from a department standpoint, I can tell you some of the major challenges that we see in Vacaville is, and I'll just lay a few of them out, and you're going to hear more about this tonight. Mental health is a major component to the issues we deal with, because we deal with so many issues revolving around crime, but the problem is how do we differentiate between a criminal element and social issues. We call it public safety when we're having these forums, but it is a partnership between the community, public safety, and also the social services that are so lacking. One of the things that we also see, and I think it's across the board in all our communities, but more so as the cities get larger, and that's the homelessness issues. So for the city, as we're regrowing, we're digging up some of the things that we were looking at a few years ago when we lost the staff. So as a police department, I can tell you, we would normally, in 2007, 2008, have roughly 115 sworn officers for a city that's, in the low 90s, 92, 93,000, depending upon the fact that there is a prison population. But when you look at the homeless issues, the drug issues, the social issues, you will also see them also in the quality of life. And the revolving door that was just talked about really has a lot to do with prison realignment. And I'm going to leave that for Tom, because he has to live with that. And all the agencies in the county have been partnering, trying to work through how do you release inmates to the local level. On top of that, what we saw with Prop 47, which I believe was very misleading in the language. You can't really say it's safe neighborhoods and schools when it's releasing. The concept that I will tell you from our department simply is, I asked our staff, when you reduce felonies to misdemeanors, does it change our response, and should it? The answer is no. We're still going to respond to the issue. It's an epidemic problem of incarceration of what seems to have been a trend over 20 years of drug arrests. But I will tell you, heroin is on the rise. Methamphetamine is a major issue in this county, but heroin is on the rise. And so when we're looking at these things, to simply release someone because they're committing crimes and then putting them back on the street and not have those services is the major issue that gets talked about every month among all the chiefs and all the commanders in the county. So The police department of Vacaville, being a full-service city, I can tell you the value of what we have is we made cuts. We probably cut around 20 officers over the 5 years. But what we were able to do also is hold on to the quality services. We still have our family services unit, which is known as First in Vacaville, where there is clinicians in social services tied to all the domestic issues and family issues. So the goal was to hold on to that, which we believe really made a difference for Vacaville. And we're in that position of rebuilding. I think the other challenges that are major to law enforcement are the trends, and hopefully some of your questions tonight will reach out and touch on trust issues, procedural justice, the idea of cameras on officers as if that's going to solve everything. There's so much more to the dialogue that not everybody understands. But ultimately, I will tell you that Vacaville does enjoy a great relationship with the community. I often equate, that it is truly a partnership, and that is, I think, what all chiefs and the sheriff would agree with that partnership. You can't do it alone. Government can't solve all the problems, but as long as we engage and we have that relationship, and Tom and I were just, talking as we started this. We kicked off our Facebook. We've had it for years, but with Gretchen in the back, and hopefully you'll be able to talk to her. She's very instrumental in this. We're about ready to pass 10,000 followers, and it really is the key to engagement. Tonight is an episode of engagement, and it's the new age. You just don't put out a fax or a press release. It's about constant engagement with the public. So thanks for being here, and look forward to the questions.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sheriff Tom Ferrara, and I'm a little different than the rest of the folks here at the table in that I'm your elected sheriff. So I was elected last June. I've been the sheriff for about 3 years. I was appointed when Gary Stanton retired. So my office, let me back up here. I'm not going to hit realignment. I suspect we're probably going to have a question about that. So I don't want to take my full 5 minutes on realignment. I could go 30 on realignment, and you'll get me all worked up and whatnot. So, so a little bit about the sheriff's office. We are pretty diverse in the things that we do. We're like a police department in the sense that we have a patrol division. We have a Sheriff's Marine Patrol. We patrol about 120 miles of waterway out of Vallejo and Rio Vista. We have a criminal investigations unit, not quite as large as some of the other departments, although we're different in that we have a couple assigned to Auto Theft Task Force. We have folks on the FBI. Some of the other departments do. So we're a little different in our investigative bureau. We have a county-wide narcotics task force that's not quite as large as it once was. We also do things a little differently in the sense that we bailiff the courts. So by law, we are the bailiffs of the 30 or I think there's 23 courts in Solano County. So I provide the bailiffs for that. We also do the transportation of the inmates back and forth to their court appearances, back and forth between the jails. And of course, then we pick people up that are arrested on warrants throughout California and the United States. We also have a civil division, so the sheriff's office is the one that does the evictions of folks, and we serve civil process. We've had, one of our challenges is this is not a safe environment these days to do the evictions with the housing crisis and whatnot. Last week in Fairfield, we did an eviction on a rental property. As the deputies approached the residents and knocked on the door, the gal committed suicide. So that could have been easily, shot one of the deputies or one of the local officers. So, we face the unknown every day in some of the things we do. I also have animal care and animal control under my belt. So I run the county animal shelter, and then we do some animal control in the unincorporated areas of the counties, and most recently with the city of Vallejo. Is that going okay? Yeah? Thank you. Yeah. You're burning my time now. We are the Office of Emergency Services. So we're the mutual aid coordinator for search and rescue and the emergency response for the county. I also have the coroner's office. It's a dual elected role, so I'm the sheriff coroner. And the biggest part of my operation really is running the county jail. So we have 3 county jails. 2 are operational currently, and the 3rd one will come online May 4th. So total beds in the county have about 1,443 beds. Currently have 881 folks in jail as of today. So we are very fortunate in Solano County in the sense that we have beds, and we haven't had to release anybody. So when you talk about realignment, AB 109, public safety realignment, we've been very fortunate in that any of the folks that have come to us, we have not done early releases. But realignment really isn't a release of inmates. It's a restructuring of how you get your ticket to state prison and where you go. So what they did with that is kind of change the law in a sense that you have to try a lot harder to go to state prison now. So you can do your sentence in the county jail. The big difference for all of us when realignment came out is 40% of my population was normally or should have been in state prison. They were in county jail. Currently it's down to 20%. That's because of the parolees have changed over the last couple of years. But the challenge we face in the county jail, and Prop 47 isn't going to help, is the fact that we're supposed to hold folks for a year or less. That's what you're doing in county jail. With the new advent of of AB 109, excuse me, I have one gentleman sentenced to county jail for 10 years. I'm not equipped to hang on to people that long. You know, we don't have yards and things like that, and I don't want to be a local prison. I want to be the county jail. So we're spending a lot of effort in programming and changing how we do business in the jail, and I'll probably have some time to talk about that later. But I'm very fortunate that we were able to secure AB 900 funding, which was like a second component of realignment. We were able to get about $90 million of state money to build the new jail, and I can answer some questions about that later. So I'm out of time. Chief?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Commissioner Joe Farrow, I'd like to say thank you. My name is Avery Brown. I'm the Chief of the California Highway Patrol's Golden Gate Division. The Highway Patrol consists of about 11,781 employees statewide. The state is divided into 8 field divisions. You happen to live within the Golden Gate Division, which we have about 1,500 employees. And I'm very proud to say tonight that joining me is my Assistant Chief, Chief Paul Fontana, a resident here of Vacaville. And with him is the commander of the Solano area where you live, Captain Sam Dixon, who is also with us. And we have our retired captain with us this evening, Zeke Johnson, from the Dublin area. The Golden Gate Division, we provide services through 12 area offices, 3 inspection facilities, 1 large major communication facility in Vallejo, an air operations unit, and a boat unit. Within this command, like I said, we have 12 different commands within the Bay Area. In Solano, you're serviced by about 90 uniformed personnel. In this area, we provide, our primary mission is traffic enforcement on the freeway systems, unincorporated roadways, state property and security of the state property, our elected officials, our court bench officers, and a few other elected officials that we have responsibilities by statute to protect. Our secondary mission is providing support to my colleagues to my left and right, and we do that by sending resources and personnel to help them in time of need. Our overall mission is safety, service, and security. Service being the highlight of what we do. In Solano County, I'm very glad to say that in addition to the 90 uniformed personnel that serve you, we have retired annuitants, retired individuals, senior volunteers we call them. These are individuals who have served in other careers and job fields and have now come back to the patrol to provide mentorship, service to the community. We also provide service by using young men and women. We have an Explorer program where school-age, high school young men and women can take a look at law enforcement and we can communicate and learn their language. They can also spread the language of safety and security that we're trying to communicate. What has been done for Solano County over the last 4 years? We've seen a 27% reduction in DUIs as being the primary collision factors. We've seen an 18% decrease in total traffic collisions on the roadways in your county. And we see a 17% decrease in injury collisions in the county. Our challenge is distracted driving continues to rise and is a problem. Be it putting on makeup, eating, drinking, talking on that cell phone, or talking to each other in the phone, or talking to yourself in the car, seems to be a problem. Impaired driving, not just alcohol, not just controlled substances, but individuals who are over-medicating on prescribed medications. And as my colleagues have said before, we have those individuals who have intellectual disabilities. And as those individuals become more mobile and move around, law enforcement is asked to interact and help and assist. We just don't have those services like we used to years ago to take care of those folks. So we begin to see those challenges. Other challenges that I'm deeply concerned about is diversity in our organization. And why I say that is because the premise of this organization is that our personnel should reflect the demographics of who we serve. And it's very important for me that we go out and we recruit men, women, black, white, tall, short, all races, all backgrounds, that they become a part of this organization. And there are challenges there. And a meeting like this tonight helps me, helps my staff gain your trust, gain the public's trust. And folks, I can't do it without you. So I'm here tonight to share with you the good and the bad, and let's get down to the business of protecting our homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I got to say, Tim and I are glad that you recruit short people. Yes? And Mr. Sheriff. So if we haven't met, my name is Joe Allio. I'm the new chief at the City of Fairfield Police Department. I'm the junior guy up here among my peers, but I'm privileged to be working in a city where, similar to what you've heard earlier, that community is the key to our success at the police department. You've probably heard law enforcement say many times that we're not going to arrest our way out of our community issues, our violence problems, our quality of life issues, general crime issues. And we are not going to arrest our way out of those problems. And if state legislation continues as it is, we won't be arresting anyone. And so it's a concern. It's a major concern for each of us that if we recognize that the accountability for committing what was once felonious crime has been removed, and the idea that we put the cart before the horse, that we said we would release people into our communities who worked hard and now harder to get into state prison without giving them the opportunity to rehabilitate in prison, and then sent them right back to our communities only to know what they know, which is criminal activity. I'm empathetic towards someone who lived a life that led them to prison, and then the prison doors opened, they came right back to the community with little or no opportunity to change, because we hadn't built the systems yet that we're building. And so I'm excited. I think that when the system breaks, we get the opportunity to fix it. And we hear from the sheriff of some of the programs that they're building, and probation, and Solano County Mental Health. And so we know there are those working. Unfortunately, we just are working after we release people to our community rather than building the systems before. So that's a problem. But it's one that we get to deal with. And I think all of us in front of you consider it a privilege to be the folks that get to deal with that. So in Fairfield, we have the responsibility of providing police services. We're allotted 123 officers to do so and about 60 support staff. We don't have that many. Like everyone else at the panel, we have a hard time recruiting and retaining. It's a challenge to get qualified members hired and out on the street. It's a very complicated profession, much more complicated than when I got sworn in. They sent me to a police academy for 12 weeks and gave me about 4 weeks of training, and then sent me out on my own. It's much more complicated today. If you listen to the national conversation of what is expected of police officers, it's much more challenging than it's ever been, but I think we're better than we have ever been at what we do, because more than ever before we recognize that it's community partnerships that make us successful. It's great to work in a city where the school district, the faith partners, the nonprofits, the Little League teams are all working together with local government to try to improve the city. So we have issues in Fairfield. We have a few problems. I can tell you that what I hear most from the community are quality of life issues, which would surprise people, because if you read the newspaper, you hear violence, right? You read about violence. But what I get calls about when I was the captain of the operations division, now as chief, really deal with quality of life issues. People tell me that they want to see their neighborhoods improve. They want to see abandoned cars removed. They want to see graffiti removed. They want to see houses that are falling apart improved so that their property values in their neighborhoods improve. And so, you know, I think as a chief of police, my number one issue is to listen to those who live in the community and ask them, what do you want for your community? And so quality of life is the thing I hear most of. I can't ignore the fact that gun violence is an epidemic in our nation. It's not unique to our region. Coast to coast, gun violence is an epidemic. And so The reality for me is every time we have someone shot in our city, I'm concerned, not just for that shooting, and we seem to be really good at catching people who commit that type of violence and putting them in prison for a long time. But I have to be honest with you and say my great concern is for the next generation, is for the youth in my community. So every time somebody gets shot in my city, I remind my staff that there's a 4th, a 5th, or a 6th grader today that is beginning to fall behind in school. And we know we can track that if our kids aren't doing well in school, in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, they become discouraged, and then they become truant, and then they smoke their first marijuana cigarette, and then, although that's not a gateway drug, right, it's just a convenient, locally grown vegetable that you can smoke, which is not true. It is a gateway drug, and it isn't what it was in the 60s. It is a serious drug today, and it leads people down the path into methamphetamine and heroin and other things that cause them to end up in serious crime issues. So my concern is for not just the violence in my city, but what do we do with the kids? And we're working hard at that. Thanks.
Thank you, Chief. That is always a hard act to follow. I don't even know how I'm supposed to do it, but what he said. So my name is Tim Mattos. I'm the Chief of Police in Suisun City, and thankfully Joe was promoted, which does not put me at the lower end, but I've only been there 3.5 months now doing that. So it's new to me, and one of the things I've learned in just that 3.5 months is if our police department is going to be successful, I have to listen to the community, because the last 24 years I thought I knew what the problems were, and I thought I knew what people wanted us to solve, but I've realized real soon that's not true. What I think is a problem isn't. It is the quality of life. It's the homelessness. It's being able to walk freely down a sidewalk and not be asked for assistance. So our department, just to give you a background, we have 22 sworn officers. We have a full-time dispatch center, 24/7, with 7 full-time dispatchers. And total, we have about 40 employees. Some of the issues we've seen lately, of course, we're coming out of it, but the budget has been a problem, like everybody, which affects recruiting, which affects retention, which affects the ability to train. And as we've heard today, mental health is a big issue. And so not only is there a need to train, there's requirements to train. And so as departments and as cities, we really have to go in and find out what the priorities are. And the only way we can know what the priorities are is to listen to you. So I'm glad you're all here. I've had the opportunity to sit on a couple panels, and they have been extremely enlightening. And I've been able to go back and pass on that we're missing the mark a little bit, and we need to listen to the community. One of the other things that I would like to say is everybody here today from Solano County, it's really important to understand that you have a group of police chiefs, commanders, sheriffs in your county that work so well together, that understand that none of us can solve the problems alone. We each have our issues to solve. But I can tell you that there's never been a time when I've picked up the phone and called one of these gentlemen up here and say, I need some help, I need some officers, and they're already en route. So as a community, as a county, understand that we are working individually in our cities, but we're also working collaboratively together to try to solve these problems in Solano County. And that's important because our officers work together, they understand the needs, and they ensure that some of those issues that we have with budgets can be overcome by working together. One of the things I will say is we've also, going through that tough budget time that we went through recently, it gave us the opportunity to turn back towards our personnel and really understand that we need to develop them, and we have some really intelligent people working for us. It's amazing when you give them the chance to solve problems. And so one of the things we found during this time is some major growth in our employees, and understanding if we just give them the room and the tools they need, they can solve the problems, and it's not all through enforcement. Chief Allio made the point that you can't arrest your way out of the problems. We've learned that we have to think globally on some of this. We have to bring in partnerships and develop partnerships with the community in order to solve these problems. So I look forward to your questions tonight because I really want to see what you think, you believe the problems are, so we can start addressing them. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Andrew Bidou. I'm the police chief in Vallejo, and some of you may know I was actually the police chief in Benicia for 3 years prior to this appointment. First of all, let me thank everybody for being here tonight. You know, you're all taking time away from your family and your lives to be here, and so, you know I can speak for everybody on this point for the panel that we appreciate you being here. I'm going to answer the question, although I'll be honest with you, I really don't want to. I'm kind of a, you know, at least for me in Vallejo, you know, and everybody knows Vallejo financially and otherwise, and I'll talk about it briefly. It's been on some hard times, but, you know, I really feel like we're on an uptick, and we have a lot of opportunities, and we're doing a lot of things differently than we've done in the past that we're really excited about. So I hate to sort of start this with challenges. You know, we have them. You know, we all have them in different ways. You know, for Vallejo, our biggest challenge still remains our staffing and resources. So, you know, a quick history lesson, if you weren't up to it, you know, our PD was staffed about 170 prior to bankruptcy. About a year and a half ago, we were down in the 70s in sworn, we're talking about. And so when we were at that staffing level, I mean, I'll call it what it is. It was a crisis. We were basically triaging 911 calls. So if you call 911, we were figuring out which one was worse, and we would try and get you resources. And so we're doing much better now in that regard. Our authorized strength is up to 110. On a sort of practical sense, we're right about 100. We have some people in the academy, we have some people in training, so kind of solo officers are about 100. At least at our end of the county, and probably rightfully so, and sometimes you'll hear Vallejo get compared to Richmond a lot. And in terms of sort of demand for police services, you know, there's a lot of things that are similar there. And so I'll just give you sort of context about staffing is Richmond's 103,000 people. Crime rate's about the same as us in Vallejo. We're 120. And they're staffed at 200 sworn. So they are literally double the staffing we have. And so if you keep that in the context of what I think, you know, our future is bright and where we're building to and what we're able to accomplish currently with that staff, you know, there's a lot of good points there. The city of Vallejo handles about 78,000 police calls for service a year, which is quite a number considering the staffing. And certainly a year and a half ago, it was tremendous. We're happy to report our crime rate's actually down 12% from last year, and we're seeing a lot of things are trending in the right way. What I would say kind of globally, nationally, right, the two big issues are, and some of it, you know, I think our communities are going to have to we're going to have to figure this first issue out together. You know, we're already talking about trust. A lot of the trust issues comes around use of force, right? And so what you're seeing now is, and it was alluded to earlier, that you know, the answer is cameras. You know, cameras are an important piece. In Vallejo, we have them in our car, and we have body cameras, and we have a policy where everybody has one of each. But the part that I'm talking about is, you know, as this fad grows and becomes sort of mandatory across our country, you know, we're going to be turning on our news every night, seeing police use of force. And I guarantee you that the vast majority of those are going to be, you know, legitimate, lawful uses of force, but none of them will look good. Nobody at sort of the receiving end of a police baton, a police taser, and certainly a weapon, you know, it's not the movies. It doesn't work that way. And so we're going to see kind of this theory that's out there is this awful footage, but it's lawful, right? Awful but lawful. And so, you know, how are we kind of going to build trust and keep that dialogue going with that? The other major issue I think we're going to be dealing with, we're certainly dealing with it in Vallejo, you heard that the other cities are, is mental health. You know, today a San Jose officer was buried, right? You know, it happened earlier today and died as a result of, you know, somebody that had mental health issues. In Vallejo a couple weeks ago, we were involved in an officer-involved shooting without talking about facts of that investigation that dealt with somebody that was mental health issues. You know, you go back to, you know, before some of our time here, right? Ronald Reagan when he was governor, and we kind of changed the way, at least in California, you know, we don't house mental health people. We don't have services we used to. And so they're in our streets. And so we have not, you know, found out or figured out how to catch up to that or deal with it. And that's going to, you know, contribute to a lot of these. And then lastly, I'm going to end again with something good, if you don't mind. And I'll say this, and so, you know, it was interesting, and so Frank and I here, we're old friends and worked together for a long time. We actually had a team building in Vallejo a couple weeks ago, and so to get our staff off-site, we had outside agencies filling in, and Frank was one, and you know, Frank was talking about, you know, how wonderful our people are, and I'm gonna echo that to everybody here. You know, we are working in very sort of unique circumstances, and just think about whatever your job is. And just think you turned on, I'll finish in 1 second. Just think you turned on the news, and whatever your job is, you were told how horrible you were, and every single night. And then they go out and deal with that. And we have people that deal with that, and we should keep that in mind and be very thankful for that. So thank you.
Thanks, Chief. I still call him Chief. He's my boss. But no, it was nice going over to the city of Vallejo. They do have some talented people over there working in some extremely tough situations. But I think you've done a great job. I know you did a great job for us. So my name is Lieutenant Frank Hartig. I am a lieutenant with the Benicia Police Department, and I'm filling in for our acting chief, Mike Green, who unfortunately cannot be here this evening. City of Benicia, we're about 28,000 people. We're a full-service city. We're a full-service police department, all the way down from the top to the bottom, patrol officers, dispatch. We have our SWAT K-9 motors, detective bureau. We have a very active volunteers in policing. In fact, I'm going to kind of touch on that for some of the positive things. We have a very active chaplaincy program. And we have probably one of the most important things for us is we have a great relationship with our school district. Our city, we provide one school resource officer. The school district provides the other school resource officer, or the funds to fund that position. So for us, it's always been about the youth in Benicia. Fortunately, we don't have the majority of the problems that my colleagues up here have already talked about. We're real fortunate. We don't have the officer-involved situations. We don't have a lot of homeless. We don't have a lot of people with mental health. We do have the people that work for our city and work for our police department. We're trained to deal with those situations should they arise. Fortunately, we just don't have a lot of those situations, you know, coming to light, you know, to us. One thing that we're real proud of, and I know Andrew will probably, you know, take a lot of credit for it because he deserves it, but in 2011, 2012, and 2013, 3 years in a row, our Part 1 crimes took a dramatic dip from where they were previously. This past year, in 2014, there was a slight increase in Part 1 crimes, but it was just specifically in the larceny. We could maybe attribute that to the AB 109, the people being released, or, you know, you can kind of put any spin on it, but luckily there wasn't any violent crimes that increased. But fortunately for us, we have some very talented men and women that are out there, you know, protecting our community. And that leads me into, you know, with our community. We have citizens that don't mind being good witnesses. And I think it's our Neighborhood Watch program. I think it's our outreach program where we do our citizen academies, working with the schools. We also do a youth academy. So I think at a young age, you know, we try and partner with our community, partner with our schools. We do have drug problems, like any community. We have drunk driving problems, like any community. And we have domestic violence, like any community. We do our best to deal with those situations when they arise. We provide education. We provide the service that I think the community expects. We try and partner with the community on so many levels. I will be here, obviously, with the rest of the board to answer the questions that come up, but the one thing that I can echo what I've heard down the line is that Solano County law enforcement, I think, of many counties throughout the state, I think we all work together probably better than many counties up and down the state. I've been fortunate enough to travel up and down the state in another aspect of my law enforcement career. I listen to people in other agencies talking, and I can tell you right now, you know, each one of these gentlemen sitting up here, they have super talented people working for them, and for me, it's a pleasure to work with them, and I look forward to speaking with you all tonight further.
Thank you all. I'm going to ask you to go ahead and hold on to the microphone. Don't turn it off. And we'll go the other direction for round two.
Test.
This time you have a little less time to speak, 4 minutes each. And our question is, how can we, the community, state and federal legislators, local elected officials, representatives, how can we best support your mission of public safety?
Well, give us more money. No.
That's, at least he's being honest.
No, I think, every agency has financial challenges, but I think that, truly, the people, the community at large that elects our officials, they're putting you there to be our voice, to be the voice for them, I should say. I mean, being a citizen, I vote for my people too, but, I think we're counting on our people to make the right choices that are in office. We have several Congress people that support the Burn Jag Fund. We're trying to get money for training. We're trying to get money on larger levels to fight the war. I hate to say the war on drugs, but to fight legalization efforts. As we know right now, legalization is a hot topic with the Proposition 47 lowering certain felonies to misdemeanors. I mean, basically, you're taking the date rape drug. It's a misdemeanor. That's a travesty what happened, and I don't know how we can reverse that. There are talks about our legislatures and our people to get involved to help reverse some aspects of Prop 47. Hopefully it works because, as someone mentioned, marijuana is a gateway drug. Next thing it's the pills, then it's, the heroin, the cocaine, methamphetamine. But the thing that just blows me away is why would anyone want to possess the GHB, which is the day rape drug? It's only used for one thing, and unfortunately, a drug-facilitated sexual assault is a terrible thing. So I think, hopefully our elected officials will continue to support the law enforcement community, will continue to, be the voice for the people that put them there and make the right decisions and continue to help us out.
Thank you. I think you'll find that my answer, I think is just very simple, and it's get involved. And I'll tell you a little quick story about Vallejo. I talked about when we were short-staffed, the city noticed a resident, and she works for us now, I won't use her name, but she did kind of a grassroots, if you will, neighborhood watch. And what we found out through her is that she reduced crime with the help of her neighbors in her neighborhood. So we quickly hired her and said, do what you did there throughout the city. We went from 8 neighborhood watch groups about 2 years ago to over 100. And so work with your neighbors. Get to know your neighbors. We talk about community policing, and certainly we need to get back to probably where we were, but neighbors need to get back to looking out for each other. How many of you, when your neighbors go on vacation, do you have their keys to their house? Do you have their phone numbers? Very few, go down, and I'm guilty of it too. There's a couple on my street, but there's a couple I don't even want to talk to, which I should. And so I think as a community, right? As a community, if we start to treat each other like a community, we'll do much better than any public policy can do. We're trying to take the pill. This public policy is going to solve our own problems. I think if we start taking responsibility for ourselves in that way within our community groups, we can make terrific things happen. There's a saying once that I've heard, and it says, ultimately, any neighborhood has a crime rate of what they're willing to allow. And there's some truth to that. And so, like I said, it maybe seem overly simple, but work with your neighbors. The police departments, I'm sure all of them up here have some sort of way to sort of facilitate, that group environment for you. You just have to participate.
So I don't want to be repetitive, so I'll try to just hit a couple topics. So when I talk to state and federal representatives, one of the things I would say is I know you're working hard to try to address a lot of the issues, and I would just ask that we try to maintain a balance between developing the programs that we talked about earlier about now these people are coming out, what are we doing with them? And we're losing some of the sight on enforcement, so there's a big gap because there's only so much money in the pot, And if you're going to take more out for one suffers. And I think that's what we're feeling right now is just some of that funding has gone away for the enforcement and the funding for law enforcement. So I would just ask that we just try to keep an eye out and an ear out to make sure that funding doesn't get too lopsided for us. They're both important. Elected officials, I mean, they have a tough job. And 10 years ago, I would have sat up here and had all the answers of what they should have done. But now when I sit in meetings and I'm more involved in what's going on, I understand that, again, there's so much and it has to be spread out because in order for a city to work, it has a lot of different team members, it has a lot of different departments that have to work together. So I think that they just need to continue to provide what they can to the departments, and then the departments need to learn to work together to use the resources from all those departments. But really, you're here to find out what you can do. And again, get involved. I can't tell you the number of stories because when we went back and looked at some of our statistics, we found that when we had a reporting party, when we had someone from the community calling in and reporting something and saying, I'm watching this person do that, and could provide us with information, our success rate of solving that crime was astronomical. When we're just driving around trying to figure out who shouldn't be there, who should be there, we're not as successful. So get involved. Call us. When I say call us, what I normally hear when I go to neighborhood watch meetings is someone say, well, yeah, there was someone, they were driving up and down the street really slow, we didn't recognize them. It looked like they were looking to see who was home. We say, did you call? No, we didn't want to bother you. And so our message, I want to put a big banner outside the police department and said, bother us, really, bother us. We work for you. We're there for you to call us. We'll decide we'll get out there and we can decide whether they belong there or not, but we won't go if you don't call us. So again, to echo the chief, get involved, don't be afraid to call us, and let us help you out.
Thanks. I don't know that I can add much to that other than to say that those of us who work in government and nonprofits and electeds, if we can remind ourselves not to be siloed, we'll be much healthier. I think our natural tendency is to look at what we're doing every day in our little silo and be focused on that. And the message you keep hearing up and down this panel is we can't do it alone, so we all need each other. So sometimes, you might find something that would actually be a benefit to your neighbor, and sometimes partisan relationships keep us in our silos or our departments or our nonprofits, and the more that we can break those silos down, the better we will be. This idea of getting involved, as Chief Bidou said, knowing our neighbors. I've had this privilege of going to Rwanda, East Africa on a regular basis to teach leadership, and when we bring the leaders from there back to the U.S. to spend a couple of weeks with us, I always hear the same thing from them. And it's not prompted. They just say, Joe, you lack community. And I go, what do you mean? They say, you have all these fences around your neighborhoods. And so when I'm there, because they have to sustain daily in the village to go out, they have to work, and there may be 30 kids in a little village, one or two parents will stay home and the rest will go out and work, and they're responsible to make sure all those 30 kids are healthy. And they come here and they see us behind fences and then taking our kids and have somebody else be with them all day, and they're confused by it. And so this idea that we would know our neighbors and be involved is really the key to success. I mean, the statement, we will in our neighborhoods have that crime level of which we would accept is a reality. So Neighborhood Watch, if you're not in one, every city has it. I would encourage you to call your local police department and say, I'd like to be involved in Neighborhood Watch. Neighbor Next Door is an online Neighborhood Watch group where you can, just like Facebook, you can know all your neighbors online. Get involved. Be the one who walks down the street and says, hey, we're having a dessert at my house on Sunday night. Because if you know your neighbors, every person before you can tell the story of someone calling and saying, hey, I was late leaving for work today. I noticed a truck backed up in my neighbor's front yard. I don't recognize that truck or the person walking out with the television. That's how we catch burglars. Rarely, I don't know, I've never actually driven down the street and saw that myself, but many, many times have I been involved in responding to that because someone else knew what didn't belong in their neighborhood. So the message is get involved, right?
From the Highway Patrol's perspective, we invite you to not only get involved, but be an active voice in training, teaching, and educating. As I look out across the group this evening, I see mature individuals. You know the principles, the precepts upon which you were brought up. You know what's right and wrong. And what we would ask the community to do is to actively get involved and work with our youth, model, teach, mentor, hold them accountable for that type of conduct. And then by getting involved at that perspective at a localized one-to-one level, we can have more success collectively as an organization. When it comes into the elected officials, folks, I have to tell you, we share a very, very unique position to be supported by a very good legislature. I'm talking about both sides of the aisle. For 7 years, I was the department's legislative director in Sacramento, and every office that's represented here tonight by a staff member has done what we want elected officials to do for us. Ask the critical questions. They get involved. They come out. They ride along in the patrol cars. They ride on day shift. They ride on graveyards in the middle of the night when the stars are up and problems are occurring. They're in that patrol car with our people. They attend the birthdays. They attend the retirements. They ask the critical questions. And when you as constituents ask them to hold us accountable, they do that. They do that. Our elected officials that represent the Solano area and majority of our state, we're very fortunate to have a good relationship with them in their office in Sacramento and the district offices. So for us, we applaud their input, we applaud their participation, we welcome it, and we look forward to continue working with them.
Thank you. I'm going to make 2 points. I don't want to cover the same ground. I think the first thing I would ask you is to be and stay informed voters. We'll tell you what we need. Generally, all of us work with associations. I'm with the California Sheriffs. I'm on the board of directors. And then the police chiefs have the California Police Chiefs Association. Example, Prop 47. I think we came into that probably a little late. We admit that. But if you're going to vote and you see the Cal Chiefs, Cal Sheriffs, District Attorneys Association, they're representing 58 sheriffs, over 400 police chiefs, and you'll see probably the Highway Patrol Association will be in there as well. So that's what you want to look for, and that's how you can help us, is we're going to band together as a group if we think it's a bad law. Secondarily, with me, I'm going to need some help with continuing with realignment. We've got it. It's not going to go away. Will I say publicly to you I want to embrace it? No. But I'm going to do the best I can with it. So my job, quite honestly, is I have folks that are in the county jail that normally would have been in state prison. The idea really behind realignment is the thought that if you warehouse folks in a state prison, overcrowded state prison, they're just going to reoffend and go back. About 75% of the people that are released come back to state prison. So with realignment, they're going to sentence them to the county jail. Hopefully the locals, which is us and we have some more control over it, can do a better job at rehabilitation and training and vocational training and those things. So in my 31 years at the sheriff's office, this is the biggest shift in how we do business that I've ever seen. So we have literally changed the way the jail operates in the sense that, as I said, we got the third jail. So that's a maximum security jail. I'm going to open that up here next month, and that's going to allow me to use the old Claybank jail, which is a low security jail, as a training place. So we've also got some money through SB 1022 to build a vocational training facility. Our thought is if you're going to be in county jail and you want to sit in county jail and do nothing and stay on drugs or whatever you're going to do, that's fine and dandy. Great, if that's what you want to do. If you do want to make the change and you've got 3 to 5 years in the county jail and you want to program properly, get off drugs, do the right programs, get your GED, the majority of the folks in the county jail read at the 4th grade level. That doesn't mean they're not intelligent. They're very smart folks. As you were saying, they've not gone to school. So a couple of years ago, we tried to start a GED program, hired a teacher, got ready to go with that, and guess what? We found out that we had to teach the inmates how to read first before they could do the GED. So now we have a literacy program. With the vocational training, we want to find training programs where I can find a job for that person, hopefully when they leave the county jail. So we've designed our programs to be very changeable, if you will, that I can adjust as the training changes. Right now, there's a great need for diesel mechanics, so that's one of the programs we're going to do. We've also partnered up with a large trucking group, and we're going to teach bus driving and long-distance truck driving. Those are things that if you have a felony record, on your, and you release from jail, we can hopefully get you a job. We're also going to be able to get the DMV in there with the license. A lot of them don't have a social security card, so there's all this preparation to do before we get them ready to go out. We're going to work with Mission Solano as one of our partners in that if you have a job and you are ready to go, if you don't have a place to live, it's going to be a really problem for you a big problem to do that. We have mental health issues and all those things. So we're trying to really shift how we do business in the jail to hopefully reduce that recidivism rate. If we can get it from 75% and down to 65% at $154 a day to keep somebody in jail, that's going to be a great savings to the taxpayers. Thank you.
Well, I would say, first and foremost, I want to start off with a question for you to ponder, and I'm sure we're going to answer some of your questions as well. I'm going to ask you, and I would ask this to the general public, how much victimization are you willing to accept? And I think that's the question. Because when we get the phone call in the middle of the night, and we're privileged to be able to have a dispatcher answer every call that comes into our comm center, we're as a full-service city. But that doesn't mean we can be everywhere. And so, as an example, we can chart AB 109 prison realignment, and where the state may say crime is down. Well, I can tell you that I can look at trends for, I'll just speak for Vacaville, having in a 35-year history, being able to see that it was more dangerous to live in Vacaville 35 years ago per capita than it is today. But since realignment, property crime has gone up 50%. So if you increase since 2013 or 2012 to now, over 1,000 more property crimes, who's committing them? We're out there trying to stop them. We may cite them, we may arrest them, we may put them, in front of the courts. And whether they stay there or not is irrelevant. The change is there. The behavior is within our society. It's an indifference to authority and law. I recently had the privilege of speaking in front of a community group that, again, was hosted at the police department. Our ability to bring in and open up our department in our city to ask questions. So we have this 8-week program for a Citizens Academy. It's things like that that allows for engagement where people can ask questions. And I simply asked the question because of everyone in the room probably would love to have a conversation about Ferguson. Ferguson isn't new, but it's a resurgent of an emotional feeling that people have in our society. And if you would ask the chiefs around the state who have been around for a while, they will tell you, I have not seen the change in our profession like I'm seeing it now, because trust is gone. And while we are, and I heard it earlier, the level of trust and the level of professionalism that's in the profession, hands down, whether there's issues that could be cited around the country or not, is much higher now, a much more educated force, a much more complicated profession, yet we will be dissected every single day from an Uber stop where you want to see and listen to a police officer yell. I'm like, not doing very well for the team, There's human people behind the badge. But the challenge is we can't do it alone. So, as I look at that, I want to say that that's a valid question. How much are we going to tolerate? And we can't be there for everyone. So that community engagement. Local issues, how can you help? Local issues are very important, and I'm just going to list a couple. And I know they touch on all jurisdictions, but we talk about the social behaviors and the quality of life. The increase in massage parlors, trying to be regulated at the state level. It fails, and we nearly doubled the number in our community. So we're trying to fix that again. The gambling issue, that's trying to be fixed right now. It went through an entire year process. We work in a legal system. It's not about truth and justice. It's about rules and laws. So we're almost at square one starting all over again because of those issues. So these aren't just the crime issues. These are the social issues. And we're going to have to deal with them on top of all our crime. So I would say that those things are very important, and I heard it first when we came back through this round. I made it a point to go up to Sacramento and sit in Senator Wolk's office or Assemblyman Frazier's office and say, here's the concerns. And I believe that every one of us here have that dialogue to make sure that that occurs. But you as an individual, make your voice known. And if you don't know what the legislation is, read it carefully and look to someone else that you trust, but don't just assume yes is good.
My request to our community would be to be more engaged, to be more informed on political issues, especially issues involving public safety. And that's easy for me to say, just be more involved. But on the flip side of that, I think we as a police department need to do more to give people the opportunity to be involved. Chief Carli mentioned citizen academies, or it could be town hall meetings such as this in our own communities. Whatever it takes, just communicate, and eventually, I think together we could make progress. At the fed or state level, just one issue that's come about recently. The state's police officers' standards and training, their budget, it's not just our budgets that have been hit, their budget has been hit as well. For small agencies like ours, we rely on their monies for training, or they set the standards in training, and they take the lead on this. So I think it would be nice if that issue was taken care of. So any state officials, that's my message to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. At this point, we're going to have some brief comments from people who are here representing various community resources. We're going to start with Solano County Mental Health. Eric Sheets, Mental Health Clinic Supervisor, and each of you have 3 minutes to sort of outline your issues.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening, and thank you for coming out. Solano County Mental Health offers a variety of services throughout Solano County, Vallejo, Fairfield, and Vacaville to a variety of folks, from children to adults and subpopulations within those two categories. Without going into all the different resources and programs that are offered, the two common questions that I hear are, how does one access mental health services, and what do I do when there's a mental health emergency, and how can I get myself or a loved one or a friend the assistance that they need. We've got some resources in the back on the table there, so please make use of those, both for our crisis stabilization unit and for how to access mental health services. But just briefly, if you've never had mental health services, or perhaps you know someone who's had them in the past and maybe they've dropped out of treatment and would like to reinitiate that, it's simply just picking up the telephone and calling our access unit. That phone number is 800-547-0495. Again, we have the flyers in the back with that information as well. The call will be answered by a live person. If not, in the rare exception that it's not, you'll get a call back same day generally. And they'll do a quick screening, and you may be referred to services within the county, but you also may be referred to community services as well. So it's a great opportunity. Maybe you're not quite sure what you or your family member or friend might need. They're very well trained and can assist you in that regard. The other question was, well, what about when there's a mental health emergency? How should I respond? I'm delighted to say that we have a representative for our Exodus Solano Crisis Stabilization Unit here. Within the last few years, we've opened our Crisis Stabilization Unit and had great response from the community. Prior to that, with the downturn, not only affected our law enforcement folks, it also hit mental health very hard, and we had to limit our ability to be able to provide crisis services directly on a face-to-face basis where they came into our crisis units. So we had to close our crisis unit, and many of those folks were diverted, particularly after hours, to the emergency rooms. That put a huge burden on our hospitals who aren't really set up for folks who are experiencing a psychiatric emergency, often put a heavy burden on our law enforcement folks, because if they were not cooperative at the emergency room, law enforcement often had to stand by and provide support. So I'm pleased to say that our mental health director, Halsey Simmons, heard the concerns from the community about a need to have a place where folks, that was a quick 3 minutes, boy, let me tell you what. And so our crisis stabilization unit is a fantastic resource. I also just want to take a quick second and just speak to our crisis intervention team training, mental health partners with law enforcement. I've worked personally with many of the people that you see up here or their designees, and can say I've just been so impressed with their commitment to serving our folks who struggle with mental illness in a very humane and appropriate manner. And last thing I'll leave you with is, for every thing you see on the news where the media is highlighting an intervention that they would say was not a good one, remember there are literally hundreds and hundreds of interventions with law enforcement and our mentally ill folks that you don't see. And they do a fantastic job, and I just want to acknowledge them and for all that they do. Thank you.
Next up, Solano County Library Adult Literacy Program, Joanne Wright, Literacy Program Manager.
So I think it's kind of a strange world we live in that we have our libraries that have to have sheriffs and security guards, but it is really the time that we live in. I work for Solano County Library, and we have 8 branches that we serve around the county. We do not serve Dixon and Benicia, who have their own branches. And our adult literacy program is also combined with a family literacy program, a Reach Out and Read, a pediatric literacy program, and an English as a second language program. It's our belief that the health of the whole family is important to our community. We know that 20% of our population struggles with reading. They can't read at the most basic level. They can't read a medicine bottle, a cereal box, a note from the child's teacher. And then there's another 34% who don't read well. They may read a little bit, but not well enough to have a good job. We have one of the richest countries in the world, and we have over 50% of our population who struggles with reading and writing. It's a real strange time. And Chief Allio said about children. If children struggle in school, they get into trouble, they drop out, they stay in our system for many, many years. It's really important that we help those young kids get the skills they need to be able to be successful in our society. It takes a really exceptional child to not have the support of their parents and be able to do well in our school system. If the parents in a family can't help their children with their homework, can't read, can't write, those children are, the cycle is really bad. They will have a hard time being successful. You can spend all the money in the world on beautiful children's books, but if you send them home to a family where the parents don't read, you're throwing your money away. We have our literacy program serves adults who read at or below the 5th grade level. We are looking for those pre-GED students, those ones who can move on from our program to the adult schools and the community colleges. We need volunteers. We constantly need volunteers. I have a very small staff of about 5 or 6 workers who support. We have about 350 students right now working around the county with a lot of volunteers. We have an army of volunteers, and we always need more. We can never keep up with the waiting list of students who are looking for, adult students who are looking for services. We have a training that starts the middle of April. If you're interested in finding out anything about it, I have information back there at the table. We invite you just to come to an orientation, find out about it, and share the information with your neighbors and your friends, and help us stomp out this cycle of illiteracy here in Solano County.
Okay, next up is Mission Solano's Director, Ron Marlette.
Thank you, Robbin. Thank you all for allowing me to be here. You all know about Mission Solano, and have probably heard of Mission Solano in one way or another, and you all know about homelessness. Homelessness is a very real issue in our county. It has been for a long time. It didn't just start. I grew up in this county. I came of age in the 70s. In fact, last time I was here in this building here, I think I came to see C.P. Crunt. If anybody remembers who that was, a long time ago. Some people are laughing. But in the 70s, I was homeless in the 70s with my parents living in motels, in and out of homelessness as I grew up. But I also learned that there was a way out of homelessness. And when I got out of homelessness myself, went back and was educated and learned, I had a passion that I wanted to help others. So we started Mission Solano, May 1st, 1998. Right now, Mission Solano has 160 people in our care. We are planning to build our commercial kitchen this year. Once that's done, our capacity will be 275 individuals. You would think that would be enough to care for the homelessness in our county. It's not. There are different individuals that we must help in caring for the homeless. Right in Vacaville, you guys have the Opportunity House. In Vallejo, I hope soon we're going to have the Christian Help Center back up and running. I believe we will soon. But what we need as those that care for the homeless is we need the community to be involved with what we're doing. We need to, for you to understand that the homelessness today is a very complex issue, and it just can't be providing a meal for somebody and expecting that individual to be back on their feet. We believe at Mission Solano that the way to break the cycle of homelessness and poverty is to do it in a holistic manner. That's dealing with the physical, the emotional, the psychological, the behavioral, and the spiritual components of individuals that come to us. It's being able to assess that individual when they come in and find out why they're homeless and what are those areas that they're broken in, for lack of a better term, and what we need to do to prepare them to not only get a job, but to keep that job. And the exciting thing about it is we're doing that. We're doing that at Opportunity House. We're doing that at Mission Solano. We're doing that at Heather House. But we can't do it by ourselves. Mission Solano is not the answer to Solano County's homelessness. We are the answer to Solano County's homelessness. And we can do it. We can make a difference in the lives of the homeless families, the lives of the homeless veterans that are out there, the individuals. I'm thankful for our law enforcement that are working closely with the different shelters and the places that are working with the homeless population. I'm happy to work with them now. Back in the 70s, I would run from them, but it's happy to work side by side with them now and make the difference in the lives of the homeless population. So also, Nick Fisher, who's our Director of Development over there, I got a few more seconds. We put together what we call our 2014 Outcomes Report. You can sign up. We'll send this to you. It's on our website at missionsolano.org. This is what we've put together, which tells you who the homeless are in Solano County. It's not just the individuals you see panhandling. In fact, 99% of those that are panhandling and they don't want help. But there are those individuals that want the help, and we need to give it. And the fact of the matter is, if somebody came today and said, I want to get out of homelessness, I want a job, I want to better my life, we have the resources in Solano County now to do that. But the individual's got to want it. And they've got to have discipline to follow the steps that we put in front of them. We, I say, as a community, in working together to break that cycle of homelessness and poverty. So we can get you one of those and help you help the homeless in your neighborhood. That's it. Thank you.
And last but not least, Law Enforcement Community Services Chaplain Mindy Russell.
Good evening. I got good news for you. First of all, I'm not from your county, but I am so in awe of all the chiefs and the sheriff and the CHP that's here tonight. I can tell you that no matter what county you're in, you have men and women that have been called in this profession called law enforcement. I have such the privilege of serving for 20 years with our law enforcement families in Sacramento, city, county, state, and federal, 19 different agencies. As the executive director over 150 chaplains, what we do is to be able to support these men and women that give it their all. And I will not at all apologize for what I see out there, for our officers and what they do day in and day out. I guess if I could say what we are, we're the cheerleaders of the officers. Because we really do see all the things that never gets in the newspaper. But I want you to know this. I'm also a part of the community, and I'm a part of every community, representing these chaplains that serve many of the agencies here. We're out there in the community helping in proactive ways as well as the reactive ways. I guarantee you every chief here would say, I'm tired of always showing up after the fact. Let me ask you a question. How much do you think it costs you as a taxpayer to keep a healthy child healthy? Pennies on the dollar. But how much does it cost you as a taxpayer to take care of a broken child and make them healthy again? Thousands and thousands. I work with human trafficked children, girls that have been trafficked from the time they were 4 years old until they're 15. It takes the minimum of $6,500 of your money every month to get them back to some kind of normalcy. Let's stop this nonsense. So every one of them said it already, but I'm just going to echo it again. Don't get overwhelmed by everything they've said. There's so much out there to do. Find your niche. Find it and then do it. For every one of us, there's something we're drawn to. It might be that you're for the senior citizens, and you're for the dogs, and you're for the children, and you're for the... It doesn't matter what you're drawn to, but get out there and do it. For the time that you can give for the volunteer, for our officers, you will make a difference in your life, their department, and this community. We can do this. I join hands with Solano County from Sacramento County and say, we can collectively do this. And so if you want to talk a little bit more back there, our chaplains don't pray over rubber chicken dinners. Amen. What we do is we go in the schools, every school, 87 schools in 16 school districts, and we sit there at lunchtime to look for the kids that are in trauma before there's a meltdown. We go into businesses when a coworker has died. We go into neighborhoods when things have happened so the officers can do their job. Let's do this together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we're to that fun part now where we're going to start asking some questions from the audience. If you haven't gotten your question to me, just, wave it around. Someone will come and find you. I'm going to start out with, this is a question just sort of in general for everyone. How do you think crime is affected by planning the housing mix, low-cost housing, apartment complexes, single-family homes, etc.? And whoever wants to start.
I'm just going to add a little bit and then I'll pass it. I will say planning is so important because I have statistics that we can talk about our successes, but I will tell you in Vacaville, one of the things that I'm very proud of is programs that look to the schools. So our school resource officers in our YSS program, it's the one area we didn't cut, because we knew that that's an area you can't get back. So in everything that you know it would take years or never get back, you just don't cut and you weather the storm. Between that and our what used to be a domestic violence response team turned into a very expansive program that has master social workers and staff that provides support and counseling and training for parents and also for victims. When you look at what that has to offer, it's because it's within the ills of society that the police officer isn't going to solve when they go to the door. So having a council and a community that supports those kinds of efforts are a model program for Vacaville. And we can actually pinpoint in the 90s when crime drastically reduced. And we enjoyed a low crime rate for the majority of the last 20 years because of those kinds of efforts that really were about planning. So it's very important. There's no better time to tackle a problem than to see it and don't think that it's so insurmountable that you can't solve it. You just take it one day at a time, one program at a time, one policy at a time, and just going in the same direction. And over time, you will see a difference.
Thanks, John. The question about, sounds like it's whether it's housing or dense populations like apartment complexes, they do impact crime, but the connection often to crime is poverty. And so whether it's a residential neighborhood suffering from poverty or a large apartment complex or multiples together where there's poverty, that's normally connected to crime. And so everything that was said earlier about what we can do related to crime impacts neighborhoods where there's even poverty. So let me give you an example. In Fairfield, we have an apartment complex that had a lot of crime, one of our highest crime rates, and one nonprofit group went in and said, we're going to teach tutoring in this complex. Some owners gave them a room for them to come in and provide tutoring. They started an after-school tutoring program, and crime dropped over 50% after 2 years of tutoring. 25 kids in an apartment complex who after school, instead of going to their homes and being alone, walked into a tutoring center, received tutoring after school. It's amazing because to measure the why is a challenge. But I think the why is because people see children being ministered to in their complex and a change of behavior. So the owners of that complex, they noticed that their occupancy rate, which was in the 70s, went up to the high 90s, that their damage to apartment complexes and graffiti and et cetera dropped to a minimum. So their costs for their complex dropped to a minimum. And we measured crime and saw over a 50% reduction of calls for service and crime. And so that particular ownership group said, well, you know, we own some apartments in Rialto, California, too. Would you come down here and open in Rialto? Which was a stretch for this organization, but they did it, and they've had the same results in Rialto. So I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, planning is important, and sometimes in Fairfield, when I step back and look at how our city's laid out, I'm not a planner, but I think I can understand why we have some problems in the central area of town that we don't have in our perimeter. But if we apply the right principles to providing need or care for children, we can change regardless of what the planners did to give us those housing units, whether they're single-family dwellings or multiples.
Anyone else? Okay. This is directed to Chief Joe Allio, I assume. It doesn't say last name. And it's not really a question. It just says homeless outreach program. Is there a new homeless outreach program or something going on at Fairfield that we need to hear about? Or should there be?
Yeah, there is. The City Council began last year a program to look at how we deal with homeless in Fairfield. And so we dedicated a police officer and a police sergeant to a homeless team. And they've been working with all the nonprofit, Mission Solano and other nonprofit providers in our city, as well as Solano County Mental Health. And we have a significant homeless problem, but we've seen some dramatic improvement in our relationships with each of the groups because we have a homeless team. So full-time dedicated, that's their only job. And I won't take the time, but I would love to tell the stories of the people that they've got into housing. The homeless woman that people would call about on Travis Boulevard at St. Mark's who didn't have access to her money because she wasn't legally in the country, she thought, and they actually drove her to immigration, got her immigration status cleared up while Mission Solano housed her, brought her to court, got a conservator, and got her into a home because she has dementia where she'll be cared for the rest of her life. And I could tell you story after story. I've got about 30 of them just since last summer where they've got people off the street because they've learned who they are and what their needs are, and then they connect to service providers to provide them help. And I guess what I would say, and I think maybe all the police leaders would agree with me, I don't necessarily think that's what the police department should be doing. But because we're normally good at what we do, we've chosen to do it and we'll continue to do it. But we're challenging our providers in our community to step up and take that role and responsibility and get out and learn who the homeless are and provide the services so policemen can get back to policing. But until that happens, we're going to keep a team out on the street because I don't think we have an option. We have to provide services to people who are homeless. They are mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, and we have to remind each other that we have to have empathy towards those people who are struggling on the street. They're not those people. There are people. They live in Fairfield, so we got to take care of them.
Okay. This next one probably should go to the sheriff. Our jails, prisoners are being released, are releasing mentally ill folks. Where are they going and what services are available? And if mental health facilities are full, where do they go to jail?
Okay, I'm going to have to answer that one in phases, I think. A good chunk of the population in the county jail does have some mental health issues. We probably have about 20 in there right now that are significantly mentally ill and deteriorating. The problem that all the jails have, and I'm not single in this, is that we have some folks that have completed the court process. They have been deemed to be mentally ill and should go to a mental health institute. There are no beds, so we've had some folks waiting for up to 7 months in the county jail while we try to get them to their sentence facility. So that's a problem. It's been a problem. I don't know that it's going to change. The jail does tend to be the housing area for the mentally ill and the homeless, and that all kind of goes all hand in hand. So a lot of times we get folks in there that, I don't remember what the percentage is, but it's very high of the folks that are in jail that are homeless. Most of them are drug abusers, alcohol abuse. So the question that we have, and mental health works closely with this, and so do the police departments, is it the alcohol or drugs or the mental health? Which comes first? And it's a vicious cycle. So the problem in the county jail that we have is we don't have the ability to forcibly medicate someone. So if we get them in custody, it would take a court order for a one-time dose of medication. So the folks that do want to get off drugs and want to, obtain mental health counseling and medication, they do very well in custody. There are a significant number that don't want to do that, and they want to continue the cycle. Did I answer that?
I think so.
Okay.
This question, I'm actually going to combine a couple because they're similar. The first is, how has social media been a benefit or detriment to your department and investigations? And on a related factor, Suisun PD, what are you doing to improve your social media presence and Facebook, et cetera, with a little praise that says Vacaville has a great social media presence?
Can I tell a quick social media story? But I think Vacaville's the star of the Facebook. There was a newspaper story here. We had got a 911 call, and it came into our center, but it bounced off a 911 tower out in Dixon, flat area. Boys calling saying, hey, my dad fell off a cliff. He's badly injured. We need help. And so we're thinking Dixon's flat. There's no hills around. So we're trying to send resources out there. We're trying to figure out where this is at. So one of our brand new dispatchers, 3 weeks on the job, very socially media savvy, way more than me, goes out, is on a break. So she runs out the door, jumps on her phone because they can't have electronic devices in the dispatch center. They're not supposed to be on Facebook. She jumps on to Facebook or one of the sites, figures out has the guy's name, links up, and sure enough finds out that they're up in the Napa area hiking, and shows a picture of them that morning, right where they're at. They sent the helicopter up and found them right there. So I knew it was that quick. Without the Facebook posting and Twitter or whatever it was, we would not have found them.
I will tell you that it was a tremendous risk to step out and use Facebook to the degree that we started to this year. We've had our social media pages secured for several years, but it's at that point, and I will tell you what's interesting is you can go online and download the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing, and one of the pillars, the 6 pillars that it focuses on is your community engagement, your social media. So why is it important? Because I'll give you an example. A year ago, or about a year and a half ago, I can remember a call that said, hey, look, we had a major event. We had to call out the special teams at night, shut down Monte Vista, actually shut down a county building. Got a lot of flack for that, come 8 a.m. But the reality is it's not 1984 anymore. You don't just put out a teletype. You don't just put out a fax. You don't just call the radio station. So law enforcement has to go through a transition to say it's okay. But there's a risk to that because the speed of information is so fast. An example could also be you're trying to put out information in a social environment that has a very critical piece to it. So the next example might be we shut down near the premium outlets because of a shooting. It was just an unrelated thing, but that spread so fast. The concern is why are we putting this kind of stuff out on social media? It's because we're in 2015, and it is a complete change. And the example is We have used it to catch people where within 24 hours, it's been reposted over 120,000 times, communicating with other agencies, identifying suspects. It's a tool to be used wisely. It can be very dangerous, but you have to be very intentional about what you're doing. And we put it out to the media, not but probably a month ago, and we asked the public, what do you think about us using this? And within 24 hours, we had over 50,000 views and 1,000 responses that we answered every one. That specifically told us that, okay, we're doing it right. So we have to do it, and we're all learning from each other, and we're all here to help each other. But we're not the first. It's just that we just decided it's important.
First of all, what is Facebook? I'm not
Uh-oh.
No, I had the opportunity when I was fortunate enough to test for the chief's position to lay out one of the plans for the PD as we move forward. And I probably wasn't saying it right, but I kept telling the city manager, we are going to blow up our social media in a good way, because I was talking to Chief Carli and finding out what was going on there, and we were just missing it. We had a Facebook, but when you looked, I wasn't sure when things were posted, and going in and cleaning it out. So we just ordered our brand new Suisun City PD app, which we are going to be putting out and trying to get. The goal is, if we have 29,000 people in the city, I'd like 29,000 downloads. That's the goal. Because in this day and age, getting information out to the community is one of the most vital things we can do. Because, one, if you don't know what's going on, you're going to fill in the blanks yourself. Two, we can use your help. And if we get the information to you, you can help. You can help. We can give you descriptions of who we're looking for. We can give you areas to please stay away from right now. We can send out information that we have a situation going on right here. Please stay out of that area. That frees up manpower for me to do the job. So social media is where we're going. It's where we're headed. And my promise to our staff and our community through the community meetings I've been having is we are going to jump on board. We're going to ride that horse with everybody else. And we are going to be transparent and let you know what's going on in our community. So those of you who are from Suisun, the app is coming, the Facebook is coming, and we want you to be able to talk to us 24 hours a day.
Okay. Any other departments want to talk about how social media helps or hinders investigations?
At the state level for the Highway Patrol, social media has been very helpful to us, especially when we deal with Amber Alerts. These are young people who are taken under very probably tense situations and circumstances, and that's where the community, through social media, can help to expand, be the force multiplier, be the eyes and ears to help us recover the young people that have been abducted or taken. We also use it for silver alerts. Again, that's our elderly population who, by no fault of their own, may have some disadvantages or disabilities. So we can use the public's help and assistance in recovering and finding and locating these individuals. We also use social media to educate. It's not every day that what we put in the press gets printed the way we want it printed. So it gives us an opportunity to interact one-on-one with the public. All of our offices in the Bay Area have Facebook pages. They have Twitter accounts, and I mean, there are ways of communicating. At my level, they tell me that it's coming in because I get lost in all of the traffic that comes in half the time. But it gives folks access. It gives you immediate access. And it gives us opportunity to dialogue with you that we would not normally be able to do. And we do have folks that look at this thing 24/7. So social media has been very helpful to the patrol in getting the message out, communicating, and having that link so you feel as a vital part of what's going on. And lastly, for us, our men and women in uniform. I'm talking about our airmen, our soldiers, our Coast Guard, the Navy, sailors, Marines that are out there. It gives them the opportunity, whether at home station or overseas, to connect with the community. Let us know what's going on, or they can stay in touch with what's taking place at a local level. And we appreciate that. We welcome that.
It's okay, I know you weren't possibly talking about the reporter when you made that comment. This is from a Vacaville resident. I live in Vacaville. Thank you for your work. What is the policy on panhandling? It seems to have increased.
You might have seen an increase. I don't know that it's increased any more than it has been in several years or in other communities. I can tell you that Vacaville has kicked off, and we're not the first. Fairfield is very active with dealing with the homelessness in their community. Vacaville tried to kick this off a few years ago with a program called There's a Better Way, which was a white paper looking at the whole issue of homelessness, but it also touched on the panhandling. It is before the council right now. The council just voted on the issues of aggressive panhandling, and you can regulate it in the issue of time, place, and manner. So as an example, a time or a place specifically in a dangerous area near an intersection. So the driveways to shopping centers soon will be regulated because it is a dangerous location to panhandle. Many of the panhandlers, as you heard from Ron Marlette, have nothing to do with homelessness. There's gypsy groups, there's people that come in their $30,000 Chevy trucks outside of Costco, and you can sit there and watch them, and they're taking more money than you're earning in a day, paying no taxes, and just based on sympathy. Most communities, like Vacaville, very generous. And through generosity and then guilt, you drive out of the parking lot or away from church on a Sunday, and you can't help but be hit up from that because everyone knows it's an easy way to educate. If I go here, I just get the money for drugs, for alcohol. But you will see in Vacaville, specifically, as this ordinance is set into motion, it takes 45 days, but it was voted on, thanks Mayor Augustine. He was part of that as well here recently. It's these kinds of ordinances that every city can focus on. And it's not to say that you want to be aggressive towards what appears to be a compassionate issue, but is there such a misunderstanding of what panhandling is? It's generally not somebody who you think it is. They want money, they don't want your food, so it's just something you have to educate. And we're trying to do that through our homeless roundtable.
Go ahead and hold on to the microphone because this is also a Vacaville resident's question. I have a homeless person sleeping outside of my business. He is scaring my customers, but he's not violent. What can I do, and who will take care of him?
Well, that's... Yes, all I would tell you, this, whether it's Vacaville or any community, the challenge is, and I had this discussion even at Rotary today with a business owner, and I don't see him in the room, so it must be somebody else, exact same scenario. And that is you don't know whether somebody's dangerous or not. And so I say call. I guarantee you our staff, if an officer goes out and looks at someone or talks to someone, they're not just hauling them off to jail. And I know we were criticized for that recently because it seemed like there was around 60 arrests. Every time we're coming across someone, we're offering services. Just like I know, Joe in Fairfield, you guys have done a tremendous job in Fairfield, and you're part of the model of what we're trying to do. So they should call. They should not engage themselves. There are some very dangerous things that are occurring. We showed at our recent homeless roundtable spike strips that they're using around encampments with nails that are 3 inches high that went through the boot of a police officer. So we would rather be the one to do that, and that's why there is also encampment ordinances that we have to follow the law so that we're going to do it with compassion. But there's an unintended consequences to the whole social homelessness issue. And for those that want the help, Ron's absolutely right. It's there. There's more resources around here. And if you haven't done your homework, just look at the San Francisco Chronicle in the last 2 weeks. They did a story on San Francisco, and they did a story on Salt Lake. And let you decide which one's doing a better job.
This is for all the chiefs. Speak on gang problems and getting more serious. Is it getting more serious or less? Why never?
Seriously? I was just going to say one thing real quick. In
I'll just, if you can remember this or write it down. So Senate Bill SB 608. I was looking on my phone when we were just talking, and it's the Right to Rest Act. It's about homelessness. I would think if you have some interest in that, that would be an important thing for you to read. And so gang issues. You know, we have gangs in Vallejo, quite obviously. I was just at a community meeting last Saturday talking about this, and one thing that I will say that makes us, you know, like I said earlier, and I'm not going to point out other cities. Earlier I compared us to a city. If you think of some of the sort of the more crime-ridden cities in the Bay Area and you think about gangs, you know, there's communities where gangs run neighborhoods, right? I mean, we all know this, and they run the drug trade predominantly. You know, people come in and out, the police know. You know, one thing that I'm very proud of in Vallejo is, yes, gangs do exist, but they do not run neighborhoods in Vallejo. You know, there are not areas that, you know, the traffic and, you know, everything else is controlled by gangs. Gangs are an alternative, you know, for certain lifestyles. I mean, I can talk here, we all know this, you know, the social impacts and why people, you know, primarily kids join gangs and, you know, what they're searching for to do that and, you know, what it fills with any human being, and they kind of grow up. You know, it is a problem for all of our society. Believe it or not, you know, I don't want to shock Frank. I used to be in Benicia. You know, I was born and raised there. You know, gangs to different degrees exist there, and depending on your definition, they exist in all our communities. So certainly it's something that's serious. I think it's a reflection of, you know, kind of what, and I'm going to say this, and please, I do not mean to insult whoever asked the question. You know, we talked about buildings and poverty and density. You know, I've never seen a building that committed a crime. I've never arrested one. I know a lot of people that are in poverty that do not commit crimes. And so let's talk about what the real issues is. And I think Joe hit a lot of those, right, about, you know, opportunity. Kind of what I talked about before, you know, are we acting like a community? You know, is our economic state in our country and certainly locally affecting that, where two parents are working multiple jobs so kids aren't getting, you know, what I consider myself as to be lucky enough to grow up with. And, you know, as I look around the room, I assume a lot of us. And so are we attacking those issues? Are we filling those voids? And how does that help a lot of things that we're talking about? You want to go back?
We have no games.
Fairfield's going to beg off that one, huh?
No, I'll just say that, you know, I'm still 30 years in the business, naive enough to still be shocked by the way young people can treat each other. That, so we have traditional gangs in Fairfield, but we wrote a gang injunction a number of years ago, and so two particular gangs, the North and South groups that fought each other traditionally, the North group couldn't hang out together anymore in our city generally. And so that kind of dried up the ability for them to shoot each other or stab each other because they didn't want to hang out together, because just being present caused them to be arrested. And so that really helped. But what most disturbing to me is these for-profit groups of young men that have grown up together in our city, and we can't point our finger and say, oh, it's Vallejo or it's Vacaville or it's Richmond or it's Oakland. These are our kids who grew up in our city who don't necessarily always fit the traditional model of a gang, but for-profit, they are selling drugs and they are prostituting young girls here and taking them all to the Bay Area and back, who are willing to shoot each other over disagreements and money. And these kids grew up, went to the same middle schools together. So it's a whole different era of activity in the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years than we've dealt with before. And I'm still shocked by it.
All right. This question is directed at all of you. How do you think immigration, and I assume he means illegal immigration, issues affect crime? Are we detaining illegals for ICE? Is the Secure Communities program active with our agencies?
Sorry, I just answered.
So we had a question. We were at an event the other day, actually Rotary, and I had a couple questions on how many illegal folks were in the county jail. It was 48 last year, over the whole year in and out. So that's very low in Solano County. I'll let you guys answer the other.
Well, I'll just pass it down, but local law enforcement does not get involved in immigration issues. I mean, it's something that if somebody is arrested, that is something that occurs at the incarceration level. There's no federal powers granted to local law enforcement.
Yeah, and when ICE has contact with the jail, they, I believe, come up weekly and they check the roster of who's in custody to see if anybody meets that criteria, and it's very low in Solano County.
I was just going to say briefly again, is kind of echo what Tom said. You know, in the city of Vallejo, the arrests that are of people that are not naturalized citizens is very low. And so I would say the evidence doesn't point to any increase in crime within that community. But the other question, I think, was already answered, is no, local law enforcement is not kind of an enforcement arm of ICE. We don't even cooperate with them, to be honest with you.
Okay. This question has to deal with the fact that we're entering spring break era or time. What will be done to prevent the purchase of alcohol for minors at spring break or any time?
So I can just say for our city, we belong to, and we're members, participate in the ATOD program. So we do a lot of education with our stores. We do a lot of sting programs throughout the year, both for alcohol and tobacco. And we try to set the stage so that when summertime, spring break rolls around, that they're anticipating us visiting anyway. So through education and enforcement stings, that's how we try to address the alcohol issue.
Yes, as the chief mentioned, the ATOD is the Alcohol, Tobacco, Other Drug Program, and Benicia, we're very involved with that grant, and throughout the year we do conduct both alcohol and tobacco decoy operations that lead up to summertime, etc. We will do media releases periodically. We always, if you're a store that sells to a minor, your name's going to be in the paper. The store and the person, the actual clerk, that if they are 18 years older, their name will be put out in the paper. So it's a little bit of a walk of shame for a local business that might get stung during those things. But as the chief mentioned, it's about education. We have to partner with our youth. We do have our school resource officers that speak to the children. You know, going back to DARE, they're a little too young to go out and try and buy cigarettes, so you'd be surprised. We do take reports of minors possessing tobacco, minors possessing marijuana at the middle school level and obviously at the high school level. So for all communities, I think it's important that we stay involved with that issue.
Okay. It looks like we're almost at 8:30, so there's one last question here just for Suisun. It says, what are you doing about code enforcement, abandoned vehicles, etc.? Maybe we close with that question.
We're trying to work for the local tow company to get them towed to Vacaville. Haven't been real successful with that, but we actually have two code enforcement officers for the entire city. We have 72-hour parking. I would estimate they write 10 to 12 72-hour parking courtesy notices per day, and we tow at least 5 of those when we come back around. Our council is very big on blight and keeping the neighborhoods looking good, and so our code enforcement do focus on abandoned vehicles, overparked vehicles, trailer houses, boats that are parked too long. Unfortunately, the way that code is written, someone can come out at the 71st hour and drive that car around the block, park it 2 feet up from where it was, and they get another 72 hours. Abandoned vehicles, we try to address if they're just not operational, but We do have a very aggressive program through our code enforcement for abandoned vehicles and overparked vehicles. And we encourage you to call in and let us know, because you're the one that knows if they're staying there parked, so we can mark them.
All right. Thank you very much for your answers. Thank you for your participation. And as she said in the intro, any questions that we didn't get to, they'll be sending to the agencies for you. How about a round of applause for our panel?
I just wanted to say thank you again. I really appreciate all that you've done and your time and everything to come here. We really greatly appreciate it. So, and everyone, the services who came, please stop people and get some information and consider volunteering and making a difference. And thank you all for being here. I appreciate your support. So thank you. Bye-bye. Sorry about that. No, that's okay.
Video services provided by Vacaville's very own Choker Films. Video production, editing, and compositing services.